Hi, and welcome to Lines on Design. Yes, I am here today with Mr. Superior Services himself, Mr. David. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
In the time of this craziness.
Say the least.
How are you doing, and what do you find you all are focused on with Superior Services now? I know today we're going to talk a little bit about HVACs.
Sure.
But it's not just a unit we talk about. It's all encompassing.
True. Yeah, so we try to focus right now on getting into houses and educating people on cleaner air and a cleaner environment now that everybody's spending so much more time in their house.
100%. It makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
So what are we looking at? Take us through kind of the basics.
Sure. So right now we're just outside a typical South Carolina heat pump system. So this guy is going to be what we call a split system.
Okay.
This is the split, the outdoor section of it. And this is going to do your cooling in the summer, and it'll do your heating in the winter.
Okay.
So that's why they under such stress, and people sometimes wonder, well, you know, it's only been 10 years,
Yeah,
you know,
why?
right?
Yeah.
But they're doing your heating and cooling. So a lot of run time.
So when you come out to help me decide what I need, whether it's new building or renovating, are you showing me, is this a certain size, weight, amount?
Right.
How does all that work?
Air conditioners are sized model numbers in what we call tons.
Okay.
But it has nothing to do with actually how heavy.
Okay.
Right. It's, you know, it's actually BTUs is really
Okay.
what this accounts to. But so traditionally, if we're doing a new house,
Okay.
we go ahead and take control. Yeah.
They
Heat's
work hard.
heat's on. So if we're doing a new house, we'll go ahead and load your house into a computer, and
Okay.
it'll spit out the size required.
All right.
And then we take that size and get it in there and match the ductwork up with the size needed.
David, what is the actual, how long do HVAC systems usually last?
Right.
And do they last a shorter amount of time because of our personal geography with the
Sure.
humidity and all that kind of jazz?
Sure. So typically it's a fairly big window, but 10 to 15 years. So right here, we're basically direct ocean, you know,
Yeah,
salt sprays
exactly.
coming through. You're going to get closer to the 10-year mark.
Okay.
Whereas even 2 rows back or into a plantation a little bit, you might get closer to 15 years. But the salt air does play a part.
I wondered about that.
Yeah, very, very much so. I mean, we've seen them like on Dune Lane where they're up at where the actual service yard's facing the water in some cases. And you'll just see them and they'll just be completely rusted out in 6, 7, 8 years. And then you'll go 2 rows back and I mean, they're still in not great shape, but they're not, you know, almost literally falling apart at the seams.
So talk to me about maintenance. It's chilly out here. You know, we're sort of mid-winter, I guess,
Right.
if you want to say that. From a maintenance point of view, do people like to have their HVAC maintained year-round? Is that important? And what does maintenance really even look like?
Sure. So if we were to maintenance your system per se, we would come out here and behind these louvers is the coil where the refrigerant runs through. That's how we transfer the heat. So what we'd want to do is we would pull these panels off and either chemically or with just water and soapy water, wash down the units and clean those coils because air is coming through here and then being sucked out, and that's the transfer of heat. Technically, that's the transfer from inside through the refrigerant lines through the outdoor unit.
Got it.
If this is dirty, it's not going to transfer the heat very well.
That makes sense.
So that causes high energy bills,
Okay.
causes the system to build up pressure. Higher pressure means more wear and tear on the system. So, you know, in your case, you really can't see at a glance how dirty it may or may not be.
Thank you.
But if you were to get in there and stare up there, you would be able to probably, you know, have a better idea of what it looks like.
Do you recommend that people go on a regular maintenance plan? And do most of us do that?
Sure. We have, I would say this area, people are, I hate to use the word programmed, but in this area, they are programmed to have the maintenances done. Whereas, you know, we have branches in other states and geographical areas, and they don't want to have them, and they don't sell it. We don't sell as many. So here they do a good job, and yes, you really do need it. I mean,
I can't imagine.
we're not waving a wand and saying, hey, we're being out here twice a year. It's never going to break. You know, it's going to break. However, we're going to reduce how often it breaks.
Okay.
And while it is running, we're going to keep it at peak efficiency. And those are things that are very important.
What's interesting to me about everything that you're saying is I never considered that it would get dirty inside. I
Sure.
don't know. I mean, it makes sense. Just look where we are.
Well, that and what happens, and this is not a great example in the sense of what I'm going to explain, but you know, once a year, twice a year, you're going to come in here and get new pine straw laid.
True.
And so what happens is we'll go to some outdoor units and the pine straw is up to here,
Oh.
because they keep piling it up and piling it up. And since there's not a lot of traffic in this area, it just gets fluffier and fluffier. Once again, impeding that airflow through here. So you want to keep this area clean. We're in an area where aesthetics are so huge, but you'll have some people, they'll plant things right in front of it. We need that airflow. If we don't get that airflow, we're hurting things.
Sense. We walked in the house before we started, and we looked inside my front closet, and what do you call that?
So that's the other side of your split, which I'm sure we'll show you in a minute. And
Savo's going to get pictures of all that.
Yep. And so that's what's going to move the air through the house, move the cold and warm air through the house depending on the season. That also has coils in it, very similar to this, just different shapes and sizes. And those need to be cleaned. That we're bringing your air in your house through that, whereas we're transferring the air outside here. We're bringing the air inside your house through that coil and out. So
now, what does that look like from a maintenance point of view?
So you'll have a filter there that you want to change as needed.
You have taught me that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So
I'm faithful with that.
and you have in your house you have a lot of hardwood floors and tiles and things, and you have animals. That's perfect for stirring up the dust and just bringing it right into that unit. So I would imagine your house every 30 days filters probably get changed.
Oh, we have to.
Right. So
especially since when we started talking, I did it, and I was like,
oh yeah. In other houses you can get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, depending on the filter, depending on the house, depending on the usage. You would be high usage from walking around.
Well, let me ask you a question about ducts and all of that staying clean.
Sure.
Old houses or new houses, is there a difference in the way that these are all put together now versus my house, which is 25 years old or 50 years old?
Absolutely. I mean, energy codes are now in place that weren't in place before.
Okay.
So how we seal the ductwork is different. The types of insulation we use now is different. So we have more insulation.
Okay.
So for better efficiency and things like that. And yes, ducts will get, if you have dirty filter for long enough or no filters, your ducts will get dirty. So you do want to get them cleaned, every so often, and get them kind of rejuvenated, or if it's in really bad shape, replaced.
Well, how do you do that? Is that something, well, let me say this, I kind of know. One of the things you pride yourself on is being able to come out and actually walk through home.
Right.
And sort of give us a master plan or a master list of things that I can do to keep my home as energy efficient and
Right.
and make it cost effective. I may pay a little bit to get it maintained, but it's going to cost me a whole lot less in the long run.
Sure, absolutely. And there's plenty of things that homeowners can do themselves. We'll point those things out. But insulation in the attics is always a good add. Making sure windows and door seals are good. There's been plenty of places I've been, and you can use the little piece of paper test to go near a door, shut it, and put a piece of paper next to it. If you see it, moving or shaking, you got a lot of infiltration, so you probably want to, look at sealing it. So
I'm smiling at him as he's talking, because on TV you're always thinking about the next thing you're
Right,
going to ask.
right.
So bad. But anyway, I'm sitting here thinking, set it and forget it.
right, thermostats.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Talk to me about thermostats, because as a designer, I hear about them all the time now, because a lot of them are smart.
Sure. Yes. They're a great idea. They're getting to be less expensive, and the idea is you set your heating, you set your cooling, and just let it do its thing.
Okay.
In some cases, they have them where they're tagged to your phones and things, which is like geo-targeting, and so they know if everybody's left the house that maybe it'll set itself back, things of that nature.
Okay.
Now, we're told to set the thermostats back and things like that. I don't know if I'm going to get crucified for saying this or not. I am not a huge fan of it.
Okay.
In the summertime, when it's 95 degrees outside and you set your thermostat back to say 80, and then you get home on a 100-degree day, that thing's going to take hours to catch up, and you don't want to be uncomfortable when you get home.
Yeah.
Some of the thermostats are smart enough to know, all right, well, he's going to be home at 6, and they turn on at 3.
Okay.
But how much did you really do? You maybe had it off for an hour out of the day. So I say set your heat temperature where you want it, your cool temperature where you want it, put it in automatic,
And forget it.
let it go.
And since I've taken your advice on that, I really have noticed a much more consistent, my whole house is more consistent.
Right.
Every single day I
True.
can walk in and kind of predict it.
The more that fan's running, it's,
Yeah.
stratifying the air, moving it around and keeping it from staying stagnant.
Because we used to do that, when you're not there, we flip it out when
Right.
if we're cold.
Yep.
I don't do that anymore.
Yep.
I just absolutely.
In our environment, it's tough. I mean, if we were in a different environment, I would say it's not a horrible idea.
Okay.
But
how do I know at what temperature to set things? Do you recommend a 68 or a?
it's all personal preference. You know, some people like it warm, some people like it cold.
Okay.
You know, we have customers that I walk in their house and they say they're cold and it's 78 degrees. And I walk in other houses and it's 60 degrees and they're, you know, and they don't even have the heat on and they're happy. So personally, it's preference. You know, you don't want it set too much warmer than 78 because, you know, or even 80 because you want that airflow to move and get the
That
moisture out of the air.
makes sense. That makes sense. Look, just when we get started, they're telling us we have to go. Will you come back again?
Absolutely.
It's wonderful to see you. Stay with us. There's more to come on Lynes on Design.
Thank you.